Welcome to T Boys TV. We're back again with another T Boy Discusses. Obviously, it's been a very long while since there's been a T Boy Discusses. Obviously, the last one was me talking about Matt Bloomfield coming in, obviously to replace Rob Edwards at the time. But obviously, it was set to be this week. The retained and released flipping out list. It's been one of them days, people. Has come out. And a few interesting ones in my opinion, but a few expected. But we'll go through it, and then we'll say my thoughts on it. So, leaving the Hatters at the end of his contract after spending the second half of the season on loan at Rotherham is our history-making midfielder Pelly Ruddock Mapanzu. The DR Congo international departs as a Luton Town legend for his role in our rise from non-league to the Premier League. Over 11 and a half glorious years at Kenilworth Road since signing for West Ham as a teenager in 2013. A further tribute to Pelly and his achievements will follow. Obviously, that refers to a testimonial, which, I hope I am at. That'd be sick to be there. But let the simple stats speak for themselves. The 31-year-old is the only man to win 4 promotions and play in 5 different divisions for the same club. Over 412 appearances, he literally banged in 23 goals, earning him hero status inside Kenilworth Road. Thank you, Pell. Another one, which again, I'll get into my thoughts, but yeah, is Amari Bell, who will depart this summer, bringing to a close, memorable 4-year spell at Kenilworth Road. The 31-year-old arrived as a free agent after being released by Blackburn Rovers in the summer of 2021. Announcing himself with a rare goal in only his 3rd game, the winner at Barnsley, I do remember that, and helping the Hatters reach the obviously playoffs. And me and my dad did say, the year we went up, he was our most improved player because he was, but we always felt he was better as a wing back. But yeah, obviously I'll talk more on him in a minute from my thoughts. Having been successfully converted from a left back to left-sided centre back, he was a big part of the team that finished 3rd and qualified for the playoffs again. Obviously, part of the final when we beat Coventry to reach the Premier League. He leaves the Hatters with 157 appearances and 2 goals to his name. And thanks for everyone connected with Luton Town for the role that he played in our recent history. And then the other players that are going to depart for sure, as it stands, are Tim Krul, Horlick, which is quite an interesting one, and obviously Moses, inevitable. Josh Bowler will obviously return to Forest. And then this is what's quite interesting as well. Cal Naismith's half-season loan comes to an end and also returns to his parent club temporarily to see out the remainder of his contract in Bristol. Obviously, that's going to happen because that's just what happens. For them, their season's probably done. Took a heavy defeat last night. Can't see him bringing it back at Bramall Lane. But temporarily, that's the interesting point there. They sort of put it in their own separate bit. I mean, do we get him back? I mean, he's good enough to play in the Championship, but I'd definitely love to have him. I'd be confident of that back line, especially with McGuinness coming through. Bloomfield sort of hinting he's going to be a future captain. You've got Naismith there, who's a leader. Do you know what I mean? Could it happen, guys? Could we see the return of Naismith again? 3rd time lucky, essentially. Let me know. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, that was quite interesting on that part. And then also options for a further year have been triggered on the contracts of Walsh and Jack Walton, who obviously remains on loan at Dundee until the end of the Scottish Premiership season. Lockyer is out of contract but will continue his rehabilitation. I can never say that word. At the Brace, obviously a training ground, completing his return to football programme after his recovery from ankle surgery. And then obviously the players that are on loan at other clubs, so Woodrow, Holmes, Luca, and Pebble, will expire at the end of June. Obviously, their contracts where they are now. With those 4 returning to Kenilworth Road. However, we do say goodbye to Piera. Not really surprised about that, guys, if I'm going to be totally honest. I mean, he did have that pre-season where he looked good a few seasons ago. He was getting a few assists and you thought, oh, okay, maybe he could break through. But we didn't give him that chance that season for whatever it was. But I do think when you're as low down as he was, in the National League, as much as we've gone down to League One, it's just never going to cut it. I think there's players that are actually higher up that we've got out on loan, the likes of Luca, um, obviously Pebble as well. I think it was always going to be inevitable at some point that he was going to leave. And a lot of people, forgot he was still at the football club anyway, if we're going to be totally honest. So there's that. And then obviously the others is the under 21 squads. Obviously, hopefully, future players that can come through. But another one that's quite interesting is Horlick for me because, I mean, obviously, me and my dad did the keep sell loan the other day. And I said I'd be open to, loaning him back out. Obviously, he did go to Hemel. And it's interesting because Craig King, who was obviously at Luton quite a while ago, was the Hemel keeper and he left. So it makes me think, is Horlick maybe going to go there permanently? Like, are we just not seeing enough like Isted, where he's been in and around the fold for a while? I don't think it's been as long as Isted, but, still a while at Luton and he's just not really being looked at. So maybe they're seeing something we're not seeing. Obviously, the scouts that would have looked at the Hemel games as well are seeing something that we're not. If you don't watch them, which obviously a lot of us don't, unless Luton ain't playing. So it's an interesting one. But yeah, it's one of them where I think to myself, well, that's interesting there. And then obviously, my thoughts on the Amari Bell departure, not really surprised. If I'm going to be totally honest, I think the West Brom game was the nail in the coffin. And to be fair, I said it. I believe it was when he played Hull, or when we played Hull, sorry. It was his 150th appearance, I believe, from memory. And I was thinking to myself, his contract's up at the end of the season. It's a good time to part ways. Like I said, the season we went up, he was our most improved player, definitely. I always felt he was much better as a wing back personally. I felt, especially as a left centre back at times, he was quite, exposed quite a lot. And yeah, I mean, it was frustrating, let's be honest, the last game of the season as well, not seeing Naismith in there. A player who's on loan, you want to utilise them as much as possible. Bell has had them shaky games this year and it had to happen. It was a great time to happen, like I say, if his contract running out. So that's how I see on that. As for Ruddock, again, Ruddock, we knew the Ruddock one was coming, especially when you look at him literally going out on deadline day. I think that was, the nail in the coffin from Bloomfield, essentially saying, we're trying to part ways and, you're not going to be part of our future plans, which I think is fair enough, if I'm being honest. Again, he's a legend, he's a brilliant guy. We will miss him in, his influence in the changing room and things like that. But sometimes you just got to move on. And there was games, even earlier on in the season, the Celta Vigo game. Again, I know it's only a pre-season, guys. We're very much in that game. And pre-season's telling, to be fair. Look at teams who had poor pre-season. Look how they've done throughout the season. Look at teams who have had a good pre-season. But either way, look at that game. He come on. It was 1-1, I think, for ages. And then he come on and we conceded 2 goals, silly errors from him. There was, even though a lot of players were dreadful in the game, Oxford away, he come on. He was slipping all over the place. Millwall, let's not forget about Millwall away. Even though we won it, if it weren't for Kaminsky, we'd have lost that game. 2 world-class saves. Let's just be real with it. So, you had to move on at some point, but what a guy he's been. No one is going to break that record for a very, very long time. So credit to the guy. Being at one club, like I say, no one's going to break that for a very long time. So massive shout out to him. It was brilliant seeing him lift the obviously the playoff final trophy. It was great to see. Because he's been there through thick and thin. He's been there through the dark times. He's been there through the good times. Do you know what I mean? And he what a guy, like, he's just a funny guy. Do you know what I mean? I've had pictures with him in the past, and we've always had a laugh and a joke. Do you know what I mean? I don't even know the guy Well, sorry, he don't know me personally. I don't know him personally. Do you know what I mean? And we've always, yeah, I mean, you just got that connection. It's just a great guy. So, wish him all the best wherever he goes. It will be interesting to see where he goes. Does he maybe go back to Rotherham? Obviously, there's a few former Luton players there. Obviously, Nombe being one of them. Does he maybe go there? But then again, they've obviously changed manager since. Steve Evans was obviously there to sign him. He's obviously gone now. Where does he go? It will be interesting to see there really when it comes to that. But let me know what you guys do think of the Pelly Ruddock departure. But yeah, let me know what else you think of everything else as well. Obviously, Amaro Bell's departure, um, and Tim Krul's. I mean, Tim Krul's was probably inevitable, and again, I'll be honest, a few times he did play for Luton, he was a little bit shaky, let's be honest, especially for someone who's played on big stages like the World Cup, got Holland through in a penalty shootout. He was very, very sceptical and questionable for us. Did expect him to at least play in that FA Cup game when we played Nottingham Forest, though. Was a little bit surprised he didn't play in that. But yeah, obviously that was sort of inevitable. Horlick, I am a little bit surprised. Maybe we have, like I say, they might have seen something with him to not keep him going forward. And then obviously, you've got likes of Piera again. I felt that was probably inevitable if I'm going to be totally honest. Moses, that basically happened a while ago. I've already said my thoughts on that. Again, it might sound harsh to some people, but we should have terminated that guy's contract for me because, the audacity to just stop playing and then sit there and gas up Chelsea on your story. Like I don't respect that. Like when you're playing for Luton, I don't respect that. And again, I know, yeah, great times there, and things like that, but it's just a bit mad to me. We should have been a bit more harsher on him because it didn't come out officially, but it come out by a source quite a while ago that we got rid of him anyway. So yeah, that's how I see it. And for a player of his quality, again, similar to Krul, a player that's played on big stages. Moses, pretty sure he's won Champions League. Champions League. When he played for us, few good glimpses, but nothing special. Slightly better than Krul in that aspect, but still not overly great. Bowler, again, didn't really do too much. Again, I got a lot of criticism when I said he got, had a decent cameo against Stoke. I thought he did. I thought he was a big part of us getting that draw, to be honest. But the one that a lot of people can't disagree, but his only moment, really, if you're not going to count the Stoke one, was when we played Cardiff away and he had that cross shot, whatever it was. Either way, it panicked their defender, and then Asgard latched onto it and obviously scored a winning goal in that game. But yeah, overall didn't do too much. But then again, we had to change back to a previous formation, which didn't really benefit him at the same time. And then obviously, Naismith, hopefully we can get him back. I mean, will be a big ask in League One, let's be honest. But he ain't going to be in Bristol City's future plans. I cannot see that for the life of me. So let's see. Let's see. I mean, we didn't give him enough game time for me. Like we did at the start, but then since he got that red card against Burnley, which yeah, he shouldn't have played the game after that, punish him, I get that. But then after that, we just didn't really bring him on. It's the odd few times, Hull away, I think he come on for like a few minutes. There was a few other games, like he should have been playing longer. And again, a lot of people argued for him to start against West Brom and he didn't, putting in that experience in that type of game. It's not even just the experience for me. It's like I say, you've got a player out on loan. You want to utilise them as much as possible. So surprised we didn't play him as much really after that red card, if I'm going to be totally honest. And then obviously Lockyer's out. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Lockyer, to be fair, because I do feel even if you do put him back in, say at some point next season, there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. Even though he ain't played football for a while, there's going to be a lot of pressure because at the end of the day, our ambitions are to go back up, straight back up. So I don't know where we go with that. Walsh, obviously, a lot of people will be happy with that. He just needs to work on his discipline a little bit, and then he'll be even better than he perform towards the end, and he just needs that goal. Hopefully next year, like surely next year, he should get a goal. I can see him extending. I'll be very surprised if he don't. We sort of, and I think he might have said it when we signed him. He sort of built him up again, gave him another chance in his career. And then Jack Walton, that'll be interesting because I know Dundee do want to keep him. But I want to see a bit of Jack Walton. Even if he's not the number one, which I'll be surprised if he does come to us and, he's not the number one because I'm sure he don't want to be on a bench. But I just want to see him. We signed him, a good few seasons ago. We haven't seen him. The only time we've seen him, guys, is when we played Dundee in the friendly. Do you know what I mean? We've not seen him play for us. So I do want to see what he's like. Because I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I watch the Scottish League week in, week out. I don't really watch it unless I'm really bored on the Sunday and it's the midday kickoff, because that's when they usually are the main sort of games in that league. That's when I watch it. But even then, that's not always. So I do want to see him at some point. And it is interesting that we have, offered him an extension. So, yeah, that's everything today, guys. Do let me know your thoughts on everything I've mentioned today. Do obviously smash a like if you haven't already. Do subscribe. Do follow me across all my socials. Do subscribe to the Extra channel. And yeah, until next time, I will see you lot in a bit.